Hey guys, Invid Ninja here with the second episode of my Crap Cinema Central reviews. And unlike Blood Warriors in my first episode where I decided to pick one which I was not particularly fond of, I've decided to pick one which I am very fond of, as it was not only one of the first action-exploitation films I ever watched as a kid, it was the first Filipino one I ever watched. And what better way to start that trend off with Ultimax Force. Now, yeah, you can probably tell from the title, this is going to be some pretty crazy stuff, and you'd be quite right with that. Ultimax Force, when I was a kid and I first bought this, because it was released in around 2003, 2004, it was on Play.com in their budget section all the time before it went out of print. And the thing that attracted me to it most as a kid was the fact that it had two things spliced together to create the ultimate concoction of awesomeness. Ninjas and commandos. Splice them together, you get ninja commandos, and thus as a kid you get the single greatest thing ever made. This was one of those films I used to pass around quite a lot in my friend circle in my old school, and we were basically all like, you remember Ultimax Force? That was some pretty good shit. But now you're probably wondering, enough of the nostalgia, what's the film actually about? Well, it's typically, like most of these kinds of movies, set around the Vietnam War, and the Ultimax Force in question are a group of ninjas who are also trained in the arts of not only just punching and kicking people left and right, and occasionally using swords, which they actually use once in the film, maybe. Not really ninjas, but that's besides the point. But they're also trained in the art of shooting things really well. So anyway, their ultimate plan is to contact a dude called Lloyd in the Vietnamese jungle in order to try and rescue one of their captured friends, Morgan, who is a VIP POW in the hands of Colonel Min, you know, basically generic Vietnamese villain #1. And of course, to do that, they've got to get their ninja gear, which basically consists of putting on their Fruit of the Loom t-shirts on their heads, grabbing a few ninja swords from the local toy shop, as well as wearing some camo trousers. And there you go, ninja commandos all set to infiltrate the jungle. Honestly, there isn't really much of a plot to this movie. It is essentially dudes dress up as ninjas, go into Vietnamese jungle, shoot a few thousand Vietnamese troops, recruit a random girl along the way who does absolutely nothing, have a few members of their team killed, ultimately defeat the evil Vietnamese colonel, and basically save the day. But the thing is, I do have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, because as well as being the first Filipino action film I ever watched, it was the first proper ninja film I ever watched, even though it's not really a ninja film. It's not got a huge amount of crazy martial arts, and what martial arts are in the film are pretty poorly staged. It's just sort of like play fighting, punches and kicks, which is always pretty amusing, and they use their swords maybe once or twice, really nothing more than that. But you're probably wondering, as it's a Filipino action movie, how's the body count? And as I alluded to before, the body count in the film is relatively high. There were so many bits which I just used to replay as a kid because I just thought to myself they were so damn cool. Like, the Ultimax Force would literally hide in a couple of bushes while literally a squad of about 50 Vietnamese troops are just sort of wandering around aimlessly, just going, oh no, we've got to go after the Ultimax Force, we've got to run everywhere, and then they just pop out of the trees and literally blast all of them. And the mistakes you can spot in this film are incredibly funny too. One of my particular favourites is the fact that when one of the Ultimax Force throws a grenade at a Vietnamese dude and the grenade goes off, there's like a 3-second delay before the actor realises, okay, I've got to jump out from behind the bush because I've been killed. Really, really funny amateur stuff. You know, it's Filipino stuff made on an absolutely tiny budget. It was originally made, I believe the director of this film was Wilfred Millan. Now, Wilfred Millan, I don't really know many of his other films, but I believe he made a post-apocalyptic action film, of which I can't actually remember the name of right now, as well as another Vietnamese-style action movie, or again a post-apocalyptic one, I'm not particularly sure, called W, I believe. It's one of the more obscure ones. But you've also probably wondered why I've not actually mentioned any of the Ultimax Force's characters' names yet. Well, let's face it, it's kind of inconsequential. They have no real personality. They're just tough dudes in ninja gear. But if you really want me to read their names out, okay, I'll look on the back for you. We've got Chris Burton, the leader, Dick Foster, the guy with black hair, Bill Norton, the other blonde guy, and Mike Dobson, who I believe is the one who gets killed. But that doesn't matter because there's no character to these people. They are literally just there to go around sporting submachine guns and kicking everybody's arse. And as such, the script for this film is completely bare bones. This is one of those action-exploitation movies where literally the fat is trimmed to zero. It's a bare bones action film, but it's one that keeps the fun factor high because it's essentially large body count, lots of meaty explosions, Filipino jungle settings, you know, being a good substitute for Vietnam, all that kind of stuff. And it's got a very good cheesy synth score. There is a theme song to this movie. It's not sung, but it's entirely instrumental, and sounds kind of like some kind of lost theme song to Miami Vice. It's all good synth stuff, and it's incredibly silly. Again, I mean, I just loved it as a kid when the title screen would pop up and you just hear that opening theme and I'm like, yeah, I'm about to watch Ultimax Force again. I don't know, it was just one of those event movies as a kid where, as I said before, I brought people around, I was like, you've got to see this movie, it's got ninjas as commandos, and they were like, hell yeah, I want to sit down and watch that. Of course, there are some other characters in the movie besides the main characters, the typical Vietnamese villain and the Vietnamese girl who tags along with them. In fact, I can't even remember if the girl even had a name. There is a really, really funny character in a British colonel, supposedly British, called Dr. Death, who is the one that gets them all their weapons, and I don't know why he's called Dr. Death, he's just called Dr. Death. I mean, okay, he's got a skull on his beret cap, but pretty retarded stuff, and his base appears to be like the back end of like a sound stage with like a American flag draped over it. It's so bad, but it's absolutely wonderful, and I just find it so funny that in the credits there was an art director credited. It's like, art director, yeah, you just put sheets over things and filmed in the jungle and that's art direction. Fair dues, mate, fair dues. Okay, I know I've rambled on quite a bit about this, but Ultimax Force is essentially an action movie put down to its bare bones. There was no fat to trim off, there's no comic relief characters, there's no really long stretches of dialogue. I swear the script for this film must have been about 20 pages long, it must have been absolutely nothing. And if you're in the mood for an action movie which is literally just action, 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 with literally no plot to speak of, and what stuff there is completely inconsequential, Ultimax Force is a pretty good one to start off on. And it's very easy to find for an action-exploitation movie here in the UK. It is slightly edited, and I don't really know if there's an uncut version around, but what's been trimmed out I don't think is particularly consequential. But it used to be available on DVD, and you can still find it, I think, every now and then on Amazon and eBay. But one of the easiest ways to pick it up is through the Avatar VHS, the same people who released stuff like Fireback and Strike Commando, so it's one of the easier exploitation films to find. So if you're in the mood for an accessible, cheesy Vietnam jungle flick with absolutely no plot fat to speak of, and just want to watch something that's incredibly fun, got a high body count, but it's also easy to find, and it's a very good introductory piece for those who actually want to get into crazy exploitation cinema. So yes, Ultimax Force. Not the single greatest trash masterpiece ever made, but it's one I have a lot of nostalgia for, and it's one of the easier ones to find. So if you're in the mood for that, Ultimax Force should be right up your alley. And with that, guys, this is Invid Ninja, signing off for now.